Welcome to AI Unraveled, your daily briefing on how technology is changing the way we live, work, and connect. It is Thursday, April 9th, 2026. I'm your host, Etienne Newman, senior software engineer and passionate soccer dad, broadcasting from Calgary in Canada. Before we dive in, a quick reminder. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe to AI Unraveled directly on Apple Podcasts so you can enjoy this daily human interest briefing and all our deep dives completely ads-free. Today's episode is brought to you by Jamga Mind. When corporate giants like Meta ban lawyers from informing users about social media addiction lawsuits, the truth gets buried by the algorithm. Jamga Mind provides the human-verified, technical-grade analysis you need to see through the corporate spin and protect your digital rights. Visit jamgamind.com. Today we are unpacking the great pushback. We are going to look closely at the massive disconnect between what Silicon Valley is forcing upon us and what humans actually want. We'll explore the quiet mutiny in corporate America, where 80% of workers are refusing AI mandates. We will deconstruct why Gen Z is furious with the tech industry, and we'll look at the ethical landmines of Amazon selling prescription weight loss pills directly from automated retail kiosks. Let's unravel what this means for you.
Look, 80%. 80% of white-collar workers are currently, actively defying their bosses right now.
Yeah, and it's not overpay either.
Right. Not overpay, not over hours. They are just outright refusing to use the billions of dollars worth of AI tools being shoved onto their work computers. If you're listening to this deep dive on April 9, 2026, you are witnessing what industry analysts are quietly calling the great pushback.
The great pushback. It's such a perfect term for it because, well, the disconnect between the boardroom and the actual workforce is just massive right now.
Oh, completely.
On one side, you have Amazon CEO Andy Jassy releasing a shareholder letter this week, and he's defending a staggering $200 billion capital spending spree for 2026.
$200 billion, that's just...
Right. It's astronomical. And he's comparing the rollout of AI to Thomas Edison's adoption of electricity, claiming it's moving like 10 times faster to reorganize the world.
Wow.
But on the other side, the people who are actually supposed to use this technology, they are hitting the brakes hard.
Which is exactly why we're digging into this today. Because our mission with this deep dive is to look at this massive infrastructure push, not from the perspective of, Silicon Valley billionaires, but through the lens of you, the everyday worker, the patient, the digital citizen.
Exactly, because it's your life they're trying to reorganize.
Yeah. If tech giants are betting hundreds of billions on systems to run our lives, we have to ask why everyone from data analysts to teenagers is suddenly treating these tools like a virus. What is the mechanism behind this rejection?
Well, to understand the rejection, you really just have to look at Microsoft.
Okay, let's look at them.
They've staked their entire corporate future on integrating their AI agent, Copilot, into literally everything.
Everything.
Right. They assumed proximity would guarantee adoption. Just put it in front of people and they'll use it.
Yeah.
But the pushback from that 80% of workers has been so severe that Microsoft just began pulling Copilot out of basic Windows 11 applications.
Wait, really? Which ones?
Like Notepad and the snipping tool.
I want to pause on that because pulling a flagship feature out of a basic tool like Notepad is it's a massive retreat.
It's unheard of for them.
Right. Why would people reject a tool that is theoretically designed to, do their work for them? Is it just stubbornness?
No, not at all. It comes down to cognitive load versus actual utility.
Okay, make that make sense for me.
So when you open Notepad, you're usually trying to jot down a quick phone number, right? Or a grocery list.
Yeah, it's just a blank page.
Exactly. It's a zero-friction environment. But when an AI agent pops up asking if you want to optimize your text or, generate a summary of your grocery list,
which nobody needs.
right, it transforms a simple task into a management task. You are no longer just writing.
You're managing.
Yes, you're managing a digital assistant that you never even hired. So from the user's perspective, it doesn't automate work. It just introduces friction.
Okay, I see how that plays out in the public sphere, but let's look at what happens when a company refuses to back down. Because we really need to talk about what is happening inside Meta right now, because it's honestly wild.
Oh, the quadionomics thing?
Yes. They have this internal phenomenon that employees are calling Claudionomics.
It is a fascinating look at corporate incentive structures. Basically, on Meta's internal network, an employee built a leaderboard.
A leaderboard for 85,000 staff members.
Right, ranking them by their AI token consumption.
Okay, wait. Before we go any further, let's break this down for anyone listening who isn't, a machine learning engineer. What exactly is a token in this specific context?
Yeah, good question. Simply put, a token is a fundamental unit of data processed by an AI model.
Like a word.
You can think of it as a chunk of a word, yeah.
So when you ask an AI a question, your prompt costs tokens, and the answer it generates costs tokens.
And those tokens aren't just invisible math?
Exactly. Every single token requires literal computing power. We're talking electricity, server space, cooling systems.
So this internal Meta leaderboard is tracking how much computing power each individual employee is burning through just by using internal AI tools.
And the numbers are staggering. Over a 30-day period, the top 250 employees burned through 60 trillion tokens.
It's an absurd volume.
And they're even receiving these, gamified titles on the internet. Things like Token Legend or Session Immortal.
Yeah, and while Meta states this isn't an officially mandated HR tool,
Sure, they do.
right, but it acts as a massive cultural pressure cooker anyway.
Yeah.
When leadership signals that AI adoption is the #1 priority, middle management starts looking for metrics to prove their teams are adopting it.
Oh, so token consumption becomes the easiest metric to track.
The easiest, albeit the laziest metric, yes.
I am really struggling to see the business logic here. If we use an analogy, this sounds like measuring a writer's worth solely by how many words they type per minute, even if they are just, mashing the keyboard.
That's a perfect analogy.
Like, if I hold down the J key for an hour, I've produced a massive volume of data, but zero value.
Aren't these employees essentially just generating artificial activity to look busy for the algorithm?
That is the exact core critique economists are raising right now. It's a textbook application of Goodhart's law.
Which is?
It states that when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure.
Ah,
If your target is simply to use the AI, employees will use it to summarize emails they've already read or generate code they don't even need just to rank higher on the leaderboard.
just to get token legend status.
Exactly. And unlike holding down the J key, generating 60 trillion AI tokens has a massive tangible cost in cloud computing and energy consumption.
So it's just incredibly expensive noise.
The incredibly expensive noise.
It seems like a fundamental disconnect. The executives need to justify that $200 billion infrastructure spend, so they just force adoption. But the workers are signaling that the tools aren't actually solving their day-to-day problems. Which brings us to, honestly, the most surprising demographic data in this whole narrative.
Yeah, the Gen Z data.
Right. If older office workers are frustrated by forced productivity, conventional wisdom would suggest that younger generations, the internet natives, would be enthusiastically adopting this next evolution of tech.
But the data paints the exact opposite picture. We have a brand new joint poll from Gallup, GSV Ventures, and the Walton Family Foundation, focusing strictly on the 14 to 29-year-old demographic.
And the drop-off is steep.
It really is. Last year, 27% of these young people said they felt hopeful about AI. Today, that number has plummeted to just 18%.
Just 18%.
And here is the statistic that really jumps out. Nearly a third of Gen Z respondents say AI makes them actively angry.
That anger is incredibly significant. A separate Quinnipiac poll corroborates this, showing 76% of Americans trust AI hardly ever, or only some of the time.
Wow.
And 35% of Gen Z being very concerned about the trajectory of the tech. Market analysts are calling this the trust deficit.
The trust deficit.
Yeah, and it represents an existential threat to Silicon Valley's financial model.
Well, let's challenge that for a second. Are we sure they are angry at the technology itself, or is this just a generation that is dealing with, economic inflation, housing crises, post-pandemic stress, and AI is simply a convenient scapegoat?
It's a fair question to ask. But if you look at the qualitative data, the anger is highly specific to the technology.
Okay, how so?
You have to look at the psychological mechanism of how this generation grew up. They are the first cohort to have their entire formative development mediated by corporate recommendation algorithms.
Right. They grew up entirely online.
Yes, they inherently understand that when an app is free, their attention is the product being sold to advertisers. They've lived through the era where algorithms were optimized purely for engagement.
Which often meant prioritizing outrage, right? Outrage, comparison, and just addictive scrolling.
Exactly. So when these same companies roll out generative AI, Gen Z isn't looking at it as a magical helper.
They're looking at it and asking, how is this going to be weaponized against my attention this time?
Exactly the argument consumer advocates are making. Silicon Valley desperately needs this demographic to integrate AI agents into their daily lives. They need that to eventually monetize them and pay off those massive server farms.
But Gen Z has spent the last decade watching how these platforms operate when there are no guardrails.
Right. They have zero baseline trust.
Which logically leads us into how these tech monopolies behave when those exact engagement algorithms actually do cause harm. Because if you want to know why trust is at 18%, you don't have to look at abstract theories. You just have to look at the legal maneuvers happening in real time this month.
Oh, the Los Angeles case, yeah.
Exactly. 2 weeks ago, we saw a landmark precedent in an LA courtroom. A jury found Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, liable for a young woman's addiction to their platforms.
An addiction that significantly exacerbated her mental health struggles.
And what makes this case different from the hundreds of other lawsuits filed against social media companies over the years? Usually, these companies just invoke Section 230 and say, hey, we are just a neutral platform. We aren't responsible for what people post.
Right. But the legal mechanics of this verdict bypass Section 230 entirely.
How?
The plaintiff's lawyers didn't argue that the content was the problem. They argued that the design of the application itself was a defective product.
Oh, that's a huge distinction.
It is. They pointed to the infinite scroll, the intermittent variable rewards of the notification system, and the algorithmic curation. They argued these features were deliberately engineered to override a minor's impulse control.
And the jury agreed?
The jury agreed. They ruled that the platform's design choices caused measurable human harm.
That is a massive crack in the armor. I mean, if the design itself is liable, that opens the floodgates for litigation. So, naturally, law firms like Morgan & Morgan started running advertisements on Facebook and Instagram, trying to reach other minors and families who might have suffered similar harm to organized class action suits.
And this is where we see the corporate response. Meta did not overhaul their safety protocols.
Of course not.
Instead, they instituted a sweeping removal of hundreds of these legal advertisements from their platforms. They actively blocked the lawyers from recruiting plaintiffs.
Let me make sure I'm following the timeline here. Meta's algorithms are found legally liable for harming a teenager. Lawyers try to find other harmed teenagers by advertising on Meta's network. Meta then pulls the plug on the ads. When social media monopolies actively ban legal ads to protect themselves from liability, you need independent verification to know your rights. Jamgamine provides human-verified, technical-grade analysis for the individual navigating corporate overreach. Visit djammine.com.
And if you look at Meta's stated defense for removing those ads, it relies on their internal terms of service.
Which say what, exactly?
They argue that trial lawyers cannot be permitted to use and profit from Meta's advertising network, while simultaneously pushing a legal claim that the network itself is harmful and defective.
Critics are calling this textbook corporate censorship. I mean, from the perspective of the users, is it not a blatant abuse of monopoly power? Meta controls the communication channels. If they can just hit delete on the legal organizing against them, how can a user ever hold them accountable?
Academics refer to this dynamic as infrastructural capture.
Infrastructural capture?
Right. When a single corporation controls the digital public square, they transition from being a service provider to acting almost like a state entity, but without any democratic checks and balances.
Wow.
Meta's decision to remove the ads isn't just about limiting financial liability in one lawsuit. It is about maintaining absolute control over the narrative. If they own the medium, they decide who gets to seek justice.
And tying this back to our earlier point, this is precisely why 30% of Gen Z is angry. They see a company prioritizing liability management over user safety, and then that same company turns around and asks them to trust their new personal AI superintelligence.
The trust deficit is not a public relations hurdle. It is a structural reality born from consistent, observable corporate behavior.
Look, we all know the internet is flooded with AI hustle bros selling useless prompt PDFs. I don't have time for that, and neither do you. Etienne has done the actual forensic vetting for the AI Unraveled community. Head over to djammine.com/toolkit for the AI Executive Toolkit. It's a curated professional-grade stack featuring tools like Chatbase and 11 Labs, complete with exclusive listener perks so you can actually upgrade your workflow without the fluff.
And seeking out independent tools is becoming increasingly necessary because the boundary of where these companies operate is shifting rapidly.
Yes, it is.
If their approach to safety and liability in the digital world is a concern, we really have to look at what happens when they apply those same algorithmic principles to our physical reality.
We really do, because the final piece of our deep dive today bridges the gap between software and biology. If you think having Copilot read your grocery list is intrusive, wait until you hear how Amazon is moving into healthcare.
This is a huge shift.
It is. According to a new Reuters report, Amazon is now going to stock Eli Lilly's new weight loss pill at U.S. kiosks, and they're going to offer same-day delivery.
We really need to contextualize Amazon's trajectory here. They have long ceased to be just a retailer.
Right. They do everything.
They are launching satellite internet constellations. They design custom silicon chips that pull in $20 billion a year. They manage global logistics grids.
And now pills.
Now, they are applying that exact same logistics infrastructure to pharmacology. They're treating a serious prescription-only medical intervention with the same frictionless pipeline they use to deliver phone chargers.
Consumer advocates are already sounding the alarm on this, calling it the rise of algorithmic pharmacies. Let's break down the mechanics of why this is making medical professionals so nervous. I mean, how does an algorithm handling logistics fundamentally differ from a human pharmacist handling medicine?
It really comes down to the concept of friction and what a system is optimized to do. In the software logistics world, the ultimate goal is zero friction.
Right. Get it there fast.
The algorithm is designed to get the product from the warehouse to your door as fast as possible. Any delay is logged as a failure. But pharmacology relies entirely on deliberate, engineered friction.
Engineered friction.
Yes. When you hand a prescription to a human pharmacist, their job isn't just to hand you the bottle quickly. Their job is to pause, look at your medical chart, cross-reference other medications you might be taking, and consider complex biological contraindications.
But to play devil's advocate for Amazon here, aren't algorithms theoretically better at that? An AI can scan a massive database of drug interactions in a millisecond, whereas a human pharmacist might be exhausted after a 12-hour shift and miss something. Why wouldn't we want the algorithm handling this?
The algorithms are incredibly powerful at pattern matching, sure. But the critical difference lies in the fail state.
The fail state.
Right. In software engineering, there's a famous ethos, move fast and break things.
Sure, we all know that one.
If a new code update have a bug, you push a patch the next morning. If your same-day delivery algorithm glitches, a package arrives a day late. But when you apply that ethos to healthcare, the fail state is biological.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
If an algorithm glitches and dispenses a contraindicated medication from a kiosk without a human review, you cannot simply issue a software patch for a patient's liver.
And we already know these systems can fail unpredictably. We have seen language models hallucinate facts, and we've seen Meta's engagement algorithms fail to protect users. When a tech company views healthcare as just another add-to-cart transaction, they are prioritizing scale over safety.
Furthermore, when you combine this with the broader ambitions of these companies, like Meta explicitly stating their new AI models are being trained on health reasoning, you see the roadmap. Big tech wants to be the primary interface for your healthcare.
Which brings us squarely back to the core theme of today. Why would you, the listener, trust a corporate structure that ranks its employees by arbitrary token burning and bans legal ads when it gets sued to accurately and safely dispense your medication from a kiosk?
It demands an intense level of scrutiny from the consumer. We're looking at two entirely different risk paradigms colliding here. You have the tech industry's demand for infinite scale crashing into the heavily regulated, high-stakes reality of human medicine.
So, synthesizing everything we've covered today from all this April 2026 data, what is the ultimate takeaway for the individual navigating this landscape?
The overriding narrative is that we are caught in a massive structural squeeze. From the top down, there is an unstoppable financial force. You have trillion-dollar valuations dependent on AI integration.
The $200 billion spend.
Exactly. Massive infrastructure bills, a land rush for data centers, and an insatiable demand for energy. The capital is demanding adoption.
That's from the bottom up.
From the bottom up, you have the immovable object of human resistance. 80% of workers are refusing mandates. Gen Z is inherently distrustful of the motives. And patients are wary of automated systems managing their physical health.
It is a standoff. Silicon Valley is spending billions to build the future, but the humans who actually have to live in it are refusing to participate.
Precisely. And historically, when massive capital investments meet a total lack of consumer demand, the market undergoes a violent correction. Either the technology must fundamentally change to actually serve human needs, or the financial bubble bursts.
As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a different way of looking at this standoff. We've spent this entire time talking about the push to digitize and automate every single human action. But if this great pushback continues, if workers keep ignoring Copilot and teenagers keep logging off and people refuse to get their medicine from a kiosk, what happens to the value of things that aren't automated?
That's a great question.
Could we be witnessing the birth of an analog premium, a future where human-verified, unoptimized, friction-heavy interactions become the ultimate luxury? If algorithms are cheap, ubiquitous, and mistrusted, perhaps the most valuable commodity in the economy of tomorrow won't be AI at all, but guaranteed, verifiable humanity. Something to think about the next time your computer asks to finish your sentence for you. Subscribe to AI Unraveled on Apple Podcasts to enjoy this human interest briefing completely ads-free.
That concludes our human interest rundown for April 9th. The signal for today is resistance. The technology companies are moving 10 times faster than society can process, and the cracks are finally starting to show. When 80% of the workforce refuses to use a tool, it isn't a training issue. It's a rejection of the premise. When the youngest generation on Earth says that your technology makes them angry, you have a fundamental trust deficit. And when Microsoft has to quietly remove Copilot from its most basic applications, it proves that people just want to be left alone to do their work. You do not have to surrender your workflow, your privacy, or your peace of mind to a beta test. If you are going to use AI, use it on your terms. Forget the hustle bros pushing useless prompt guides. Head over to djamgamine.com/toolkit for my AI Executive Toolkit. I've personally forensic vetted every platform on this list to make sure they meet our rigorous standards. No fluff, just a curated implementation stack with exclusive listener perks. This episode was made possible by djamgamine. Keep your daily news human and completely ad-free by hitting subscribe on Apple Podcasts. I'm Etienne Newman. Stay human and keep unraveling the future. And before you go, if your company is building the tools that power the workflows we talked about today, I'd love to showcase them to this audience. We don't just run ads, we build technical simulations that prove your value. Let's build something together. Visit jamgamine.com/partners to get started. Until next time, keep building.